Yo, what's good, folkers? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. Tyrus Bain here. Welcome to the Definition of Anarchy, where today, on April 22nd, 2021, I'm going to talk about why I don't call in to Anthony Brian Logan's show. Why I hadn't called in to Anthony Brian Logan's show in a while until yesterday. And you know, there's a lot of talk going on about, policing in this country, whether there's police brutality is a problem, whether there's systemic racism within the police department, whether there needs to be change within the police department, whether there needs to be like a defunding or an abolishment, this, that, and the third. And of course, Anthony Brian Logan, being who he is going to back the blue no matter what, right? So, I wanted to call in yesterday to kind of give him my idea as to why police culture needs to change, right? But I already know something about Anthony Brian Logan and how he runs the show and how he operates, right? If you say anything that he disagrees with, he's not going to be disrespectful, right? Well, he's not going to be disrespectful. He's going to be very polite in the way he shuts down the argument, right? Meaning he has control over his own platform. He has control over the mute button. He has control over this, that, and the third. He is king on his platform, right? That's pretty essentially what it is. So once you start saying something he disagrees with, you don't really have much latitude in the way you get your point across. So when I called in, I called in knowing this, because I know how he operates when this dude Ivan calls into a show, right? Ivan, he always disagrees with him, and he already knows Ivan is going to bring something that he can just easily debunk, easily retort against, and easily mute him on. You know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, Ivan will talk over him. Ivan tends to talk over him. All right. But anyway, so I knew that when I called in, I had to set up my point in a certain way. I had to set it up. It's like a chess match, right? I had to think 3 or 4 moves ahead of him, because I know how he's going to operate if you just come straight at him with an opposing viewpoint. First, you have to agree. First, you have to get him. What am I for? First, you have to get him to agree with some fundamental truths that set up your point, that set up your point of view, right? So that's what I did. And what I told him was, police culture needs to change in this country, period, right? In the super chat. And then I said, we can debate about it, blah, 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 right? And he told me, when he saw the super chat, he said, oh, we'll call in. Give me your area code, give me your Skype name, whatever the case may be, right? And I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I told him, I said, we can't debate on your platform. It has to be on a neutral platform with the moderator, right? But he hadn't seen that by the time that I actually called in. But anyway, so I call in and I asked him some fundamental questions. One being, should everybody be held accountable for their actions, right? Should everyone be held accountable for their actions? He agreed with that, right? He agreed with that. Then I asked him, should certain individuals, I asked him, should certain individuals get away with doing shit that other individuals should not, right? And he said, well, no, but it depends. And so that's when we went into how police have these special powers and abilities. He acknowledged that he actually believes that police officers have special abilities and special powers because they're police officers. And I said, well, no, they shouldn't have that, right? They shouldn't have special powers. They shouldn't have special abilities. They're not anointed by anybody. They're not anointed by God. They're not anointed by a magical fairy that came down from on high. No, none of that, right? But then he said, well, police officers have to be able to do certain things that regular people can't, right? Like make arrests, arrest people, detain them, this, that, and the third. I said, well, citizens can make a citizen's arrest, right? And he said, well, you can't take them to the station. So now we're getting the pedantic realm, right? Okay, we can't take him to the station, but we can hold the suspect until the police show up, and then the police takes him to the station. Okay, you want to be pedantic about it? Cool. But the issue with that is, yes, if you have a particular job and you train for it, you went through schooling or whatever the case may be, you are suited for that job. Like a regular Joe off the street can't come be an electrician if you ain't never trained to be an electrician. If you haven't learned to be an electrician, right? You can't come to my job and just start tinkering with wires and shit, right? No, you can't do that, because you can hurt yourself, you can hurt someone else, you can do faulty wiring or whatever the case may be. But that doesn't mean that I have special abilities. That doesn't mean that I can get away with certain shit that you can't get away with, right? Like, I can't electrocute somebody to death and get away with it. Yes, I am a certified electrician, right? With an associate's in electrical engineering. But that doesn't mean that I can't be held responsible if someone gets hurt by my faulty wiring. You understand what I'm saying? The same thing with police officers. When the police officer screws up, when a police officer performs poorly at their job, and they get to, killing people and all this other shit all willy-nilly, harassing, brutalizing people, they just can't get away with that shit. And that's the whole point. At this point in time, they can, to a degree. What you saw happen with Derek Chauvin is a rarity. So really what it's about is being held accountable for your actions. No one's asking you to be held accountable for making a clean arrest and taking somebody to prison or putting somebody in jail. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when you step beyond the line of your duty, when you step beyond what you're supposed to do and you cause harm to other people. When you cause harm to someone that isn't a threat to you, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that. So just for instance, if I can't just go up to somebody, force them to have a conversation. I can't pull people over. I can't run people off the side of the road. Force them to have a conversation with me. Make them give me their registration, their ID. Pull a gun on them. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm making a felony. I can't do any of that. I can't do that to just some random person, right? But a police officer can do it, right? A police officer can force you to pull over to the side of the road. They can force you to give them your ID and your registration. They can give you an extortion ticket, all this other shit, and get away with it. Now, some would say, well, that's what police are supposed to do. They're supposed to make traffic stops, this, that, and the third. Well, I happen to disagree with that. I have a fundamental disagreement with police officers being able to pull you over because you went 5 to 10 miles over the speed limit, because you rolled through a stop sign. If you did that, and no harm, no foul. If you didn't cause an accident, if you knew what you were doing, I've explained it many a times. So that's just another racket for the state, right? Issuing people tickets for this, that, and the third. That's just a racket. But anyway, the point is this. Yes, while police officers, it's their duty it's part of their duty to make arrests, take people to jail. No one's arguing that they shouldn't be able to do that. What we're arguing is that they should not be able to brutalize and terrorize people in the process of doing that. All right. Now, there are some dangerous moments that a police officer can face, right? On a day-to-day basis, dealing with gangs, dealing with this, that, and the third. That's when you have to take it up a notch. If you're truly threatened by a suspect or someone who you got called on, or if there's a domestic violence issue and the guy's running around with a knife or whatever, you have to handle shit accordingly. And that's something that a normal person should be able to do. Someone who isn't a cop can do that, right? If things are truly as they should be, right? Where everyone has the right to keep and bear arms, where, you have the right to privacy and you have the right to be secure in your personal papers, housing, and effects, all this other shit. If everything was as it should be, I should be able to do the same thing a police officer does when there is a threat posed to me. You know what I'm saying? I should not, I can't, this is California. I can't open carry in California. I can't conceal carry in California without jumping through hoops. And even when I jump through those hoops, they don't have to give me the permit to conceal carry. So I have been crippled by the system, whereas police officers have not been, right? They have not been crippled by the system because they're able to carry. They're able to conceal carry. They're able to open carry. Hell, all they have to do is say they fear for their life. And they can snuff out a life just like that, for the most part. So it's not about making arrests and taking people to jail. We know that's a particular duty of the police officer. That's not the point. The point is, when they step out of line, point blank in a period, they need to suffer consequences. They need to answer to the right people. And when I say the right people, who am I talking about? I'm talking about the people, you and me. They need to answer to us. And that's the point. That's the point I wanted to make. But of course, you can't really do all that on this show. Apparently, I didn't find out until after I got off the phone. When your smoke detector battery is low, it starts beeping. So people were complaining in the chat room, oh, the beeping and the change your smoke detector. You know why? Because this is his audience. He has an echo chamber like no other. And they're always going to agree with him. And they're always going to talk shit. And that's fine. That's cool. But they had nothing to talk shit about other than my smoke detector, right? Because they knew what I was saying was essentially correct. They knew it, and they didn't want to face that. But anyway, but that's not the problem. The biggest problem is when his audience is saying and doing all this, he's listening, he's watching what his audience is saying, and he goes, he'll try to please his audience. That's his thing. He wants to please his audience. So he had to get me off the phone. So I couldn't really get to my point. So I used to call in the ABL show quite often, right? Every other day that he put on, his little live streams. And I stopped doing it because he doesn't really want any opposing opinions in there that are logical and sound, right? He wants someone who doesn't know how to articulate what they're saying or don't really have their ducks in a row in terms of what they're talking about and in terms of what they're arguing against. Because I tell you what, man, I had him. You know what I'm saying? He could not deny the truths. He could not deny the facts. So what he went to were things like I said, talking about how, oh, police need to be able to make arrest. You know. And then now, come on, man. How many of y'all believe that Anthony Brian Logan doesn't know who Daniel Schaefer is? Okay? Just answer me that question. Because I brought up Daniel Schaefer. And I also brought up how that homeless man was outside the restaurant by a dumpster, right? And the police showed up to, I guess, to remove him. I guess somebody called and complained about him. And the police got out and said, hey, get up, get up, get up. And the homeless man said, fuck you. I ain't doing that. He said, fuck you, I ain't getting up. So guess what happened? The police shot him. Like, it was like 4 police officers in a line. What the hell? Dr. Doom and Gloom. What the hell? It was like 4 police officers in a row. Letting off on this homeless person. Slaughtered him right there in broad daylight. Now, I brought that up, and he's like, oh, when this happened? Well, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have all the information. Like, I didn't know who the homeless man was. I mean, it was an actual event. You can look it up. But anyway, so I was like, okay, that's fair. I don't have all the information you need right now to look up that video. You know, other than homeless man gets shot in the parking lot. You can look that up by the police. I don't know if the volume cut off, but if so, I'll start over. Because when shit interrupts the live stream, like music being turned on and all this other shit, or alarms going off on my phone, then it cuts the volume. Anyway, so I brought up Daniel Schaefer. Y'all know who Daniel Schaefer is. La Quinta Inn in Mesa, California. Why I keep saying Mesa, California? Mesa, Arizona. Y'all know him. He was in the hotel room. I guess he had a little BB gun or whatever the case may be. People, nosy ass motherfuckers from another room, saw him with it in his room, and they called the police on him. And he was a little bit drunk. He was there with his girl, or a girl. Boom. She got out. Boom. Walked over to the police. Daniel Schaefer comes out, drunk as shit, pants coming down. They tell him to crawl. Oh, crawl over to me. You know, keep your feet crossed. Put your hands up. No, reach back. No, stand up. Sit down. Do a backflip. They're giving him all these opposing instructions. And he's like, what the fuck? And then he goes back to pull up his pants because they're falling down. And they shot him. Dude didn't present any threat. They shot him dead. Right? Anyway, I gave him that example. Oh, I don't know who you don't know who Daniel Schaefer is? Now, I've never heard him talk about Daniel Schaefer. But I find it hard to believe he doesn't know who Daniel Schaefer is. Schaefer, or whatever, however you pronounce it. I find it extremely hard to believe. And that's how I knew I had him. Because this is what ABL wants you to think. And people like him, Brandon Tatum, ABL, the Hodge twins, Steven Crowder, what's that? The guy that wears the small hat. What's his name? That talks really fast. Tim Pool kind of tries to emulate him. Forgot his name. Anyway, Tim Pool also. They want you to believe that the police are not the problem. And as a matter of fact, in that live stream, ABL said that. He said, it's not the police that's the problem. It's the citizens. So here we go with this false dichotomy. This either the police are the problem or the citizens. Why can't it be that sometimes the citizens could be the problem? Sometimes the police can be a problem. No, it's only the citizens. I remember one live stream. He said, we don't need police reform. We need citizen reform. This is the type of cat you're talking about. But when I knew that when he said he didn't know who Daniel Schaefer was, he didn't know about the situation. I was like, all right, man, I knew what it was. But I had him. You understand what I'm saying? So then it had to become, oh, well, I need, because I tried to lay it out for him, right? To where he couldn't He couldn't rebut. He couldn't rebut anything I was saying. Not with any real, not with a true rebuttal, right? It had to be like a deflection or something that had nothing to do with anything. Because I was going to get into a Tatiana Jefferson as well. Y'all, I don't know if you guys know who a Tatiana Jefferson is. A Tatiana Jefferson was the young woman in Texas who was shot through her window by a police officer because there was a wellness check called by a neighbor, right? He saw the front door open. The screen door was closed. Saw the front door open, the neighbor, and called for a wellness visit by the police. Instead of doing it himself, why not go over there? I don't know. Call for a wellness visit by the police. The police went to the front door, saw that the front door was open, the screen door was closed, and decided to bypass the front door and go around the side of the house. Didn't announce themselves, didn't say anything. So Tatiana Jefferson sitting there playing with her nephew, playing video games, and guess what happens? She hears something outside her window. She has a firearm, which she has every fucking right to have. Grabs the firearm to see what's going on. Didn't point it, just had it by her side like, what the hell is going on out here? The police officer then pulls out his firearm and just shoots her through the window. Didn't say, oh, it's me, it's the police. Didn't do any of that. Just shot the woman through the window. Now, this is a woman who doesn't fit the narrative of people like ABL and Brandon Tatum and the Hodge twins and Steven Crowder and the small hat dude that Tim Pool tries to emulate. She had no criminal history. She wasn't a gang member, right? She was a stand-up citizen, as they would call her. A stand-up citizen who had no history of violence, had no history of gang banging, none of that shit. Didn't fit the narrative that they wanted. They want all these victims of police terrorism to fit. She did nothing wrong. She had the right to have that firearm. She had the right to check on what was going on in her own fucking house, her own property. She was with her nephew, shot down dead in front of her nephew. He covered that story. He covered that story. All right. He covered that story. Right. And then had the nerve to talk about how she picked up the firearm like it was her fault. I remember that. Then he said he was going to follow up on it, but never did. You know why? She didn't fit the narrative. She didn't fit the narrative of, oh, well, she had a past. She robbed somebody back in it. No, she didn't fit that narrative. Neither did Botham John. So when Botham John, remember him? What's her name? Amber Geiger shot him to death in his own apartment while he was eating ice cream. He didn't fit the narrative either. So he swore up and down it was an accident. He swore up and down that she got the right sentencing. But see, this is the problem. This is why police culture needs to change, right? It doesn't need to change just for them to be locked up for doing the wrong thing. It also has to change in terms of how they're punished for it, right? Because the person that shot Tatiana Jefferson, that piece of shit, he got indicted for murder. But no matter how hard I try, I can't get any updates beyond 2019. I don't know what happened to him. I know he was indicted. That's it. I don't know if he went on. I don't know if there's a trial coming up. I don't know any of that because I just can't find the information. I'll look deeper. But here's the thing. Amber Geiger walked up in somebody else's house and just shot him. Imagine, and this is why I say everybody needs to be held accountable for their actions to the same degree. As a matter of fact, police officers need to be held to a higher degree of consequences. Because if I would have walked in somebody else's apartment and shot them, not being a police officer, shot them to death and said, oh, I thought it was my apartment. Do you think that I would only get 10 years? Do you think they would actually believe that? No, we have to believe her, right? Because she's a police officer. See, this is the problem. It's not just about qualified immunity, right? Because, like he said, qualified immunity is about not being sued. But that should also go bye-bye. Because his thing was, well, if we take away qualified immunity, bad cops are not gonna respond to calls. Well, good. Good cops are gonna respond because they're good cops. And I told him, yeah, good cops would respond, but y'all know how I feel about good cops. There are no good cops. There's indifferent cops and there's bad cops. So yes, the indifferent cops that don't do bad shit, but let the bad shit go on, they would show up because they actually might be trying to help people. And he said, oh, what about, there'll be frivolous lawsuits, blah, blah, blah. There's already frivolous lawsuits. It's always going to be frivolous lawsuits. And if there is going to be frivolous lawsuits, well, then that will make a police officer operate on a different level of professionalism. It would encourage them not to just run around doing anything they want all willy-nilly. So not only does qualified immunity need to go bye-bye, but the sentencing for police officers when they actually get convicted for doing bad shit, there needs to be minimum sentences. Oh yeah. If we're going to keep police officers as municipal police, if we're going to keep them as public police officers where there's no competition, where, you know what I'm saying, like if it's not going to be private police forces, private security forces, and they're like part of a government, if they belong to the government, right? If they operate under the government system, if they answer to government officials, when they get convicted for doing something that they shouldn't be doing, right? Like Amber Geiger killing Botham Jean. Instead of getting there has to be a minimum sentence. If you kill somebody and you're found, if you kill somebody and you're convicted of murder, there needs to be a minimum sentence, I think, of maybe 25 years for police officers. Because they should know better. They're there to enforce the law. So if you're supposed to enforce the law, but you breaking the law all willy-nilly, then you need to suffer twice the consequences of anybody else. And there needs to be minimum sentencing. So if you kill somebody and it's an unarmed person and they didn't present an immediate threat, right? They didn't present an immediate threat. You just hauled off and shot them, right? Let's say it's unintentional, right? Let's say, well, not intentional. Let's say it wasn't, because it's intentional. When a police officer shoots, they shoot to kill, center mass, right? That's what we say. So, because you can't shoot them in the leg, you can't shoot them in the hind parts, because you have to shoot them center mass. That's how they're trained. Shoot to kill. Okay. So that means that you intended to kill somebody. Well, then guess what? If it wasn't premeditated, but you intended to kill them and they didn't present an immediate threat, I say 20 years. Let's say it is premeditated. 30 years. Let's say it's manslaughter. You accidentally kill somebody. You know what I'm saying? It was an accident. Manslaughter, like, okay, if it's proven to be a pure accident or something like that, maybe you hit somebody with your car. Okay, then you would be punished like someone else. But let's say you did something like Derek Chauvin did, right? Like anywhere from negligible homicide to intentional homicide, because I think it was intentional, especially after somebody told you he had no pulse and you kept your neck there, your knee on his neck. All right. To me, that goes into the intentional realm. So at that point, 20 years, buddy. 25 years. All right. 25 years. So these are things that I'm saying. Of course, I can't say all this to ABL. So I'm going to speak it out loud to you guys. Tell me that doesn't make sense. Fucking screen. These police officers are charged with protecting and serving the community, even though the Supreme Court said that that's not what they had to do. They're there to do what then? To enforce laws. They're there to enforce laws. So when they break the law, they got to pay. And that is the point. When they break the law, when they terrorize people, when they brutalize people, when they harass people, they need to suffer the consequences. Yes, a lot of officers would quit. Good. You know how they say that? Oh, well, you're going to lose police officers. You're going to get less police officers on the street. Oh, black people want police officers on the streets. So what? Good. Let them go bye-bye. But guess what you can do? You empower the people. You abolish all the gun control bullshit. Give everyone their rights to keep and bear arms back. Reverse all these gun laws. And encourage people to empower themselves. Encourage people to train and learn how to use those firearms properly. You know what I'm saying? That's what you do. Give the people the ability to be self-sufficient. Right? We want less government, right? That's what they always preaching. These conservatives, right? These Republicans, less government. Well, guess who keeps the government in place? Guess who helps keep the government in power? The police, law enforcement. That's who, the executive branch. They're the enforcers of the laws. You have the lawmakers, you have the law interpreters, which is in the judicial branch, and then you have the law enforcers. Without them, then what you got? Anyway, that's what I got for now, man. I'm going to call back on Saturday because you know what? I'm going to put some batteries in my smoke detector. Don't worry about it. I'm going to call ABL on Saturday, and we're going to continue to have this discussion. I'll call him 30 more times to break it down like I broke it down to you guys and see what he has to say. I'll be very interested. Hopefully, he studied a little bit about Daniel Schaefer between now and then. I don't know. He probably isn't. I have a feeling he already knows who Daniel Schaefer is and what the situation was. I'm pretty sure he knows who Kelly Thomas is and Tony Tempa. I'm pretty sure he knows who those people are. Because I'm not going to come at him with the racist bullshit, right? Oh, racist this, racist that. Because I'm just not. I don't need to. I don't need to in order to demonstrate that the police are out of control. I don't. Now, does systemic racism exist? Absolutely. And I'll talk about that in another video because, Brian from High Impact Flicks doesn't seem to believe that there is. From his perspective, admittedly, he admitted that to me, that it was from his perspective, which is understandable, man, because he hasn't seen it. He hasn't seen it from his perspective. I've experienced it myself firsthand. Not so much the systemic part, but I do have examples, plenty of examples of systemic racism in this country. So I will get into that in another video. So anyway, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. I will be calling ABL show again on Saturday. We're gonna get into it. I will not be discouraged. So anyway, and if you got any ABL fans come over here, feel free to comment in the comment section. If you were in there in that live stream chat room yesterday, feel free to make a comment. You know what I'm saying? Come on my platform and talk that shit. I don't care. Leave it right there in the comment section. I can take it. I've had hundreds and hundreds of negative comments in my comment section because I was going after somebody's favorite person. It is what it is. Holla at y'all later. Peace out.